Hey guys, it's Cal again, and I'm just doing a short video here with a nicely disassembled, or maybe not nicely disassembled, but a disassembled transfer case from a Legnum VR4. The reason I'm showing this video is this transfer case ran out of oil. We don't know why, there were no leaks, but it was literally out of oil, and it wore the pinion gear and started to whine quite excessively. So it's junk. But it's handy now because I can actually do what I've done here and take it apart and sort of walk you through the assembly of this. Because I'm sure quite a few of you who've never pulled one of these apart, and it's even valid for Evo owners, don't really know what the structure is. But let's go from the back of the car through to the front and basically describe what we've got. So from the rear first we have the bushing housing, and what this housing does is it essentially steadies and braces the the output shaft from the back of the transfer case. Bolts onto the back of this here. This section here is the output shaft case. You can see the pinion gear engages with this gear here, and the output shaft goes there. And this part literally does nothing more than pump oil into the bushing housing and essentially take the output forces and convert it 90 degrees into the output shaft. The main housing here, oh by the way, this is the pinion gear, which when bolted together would be attached to these components over here. But that's your pinion gear. The actual case itself is in two pieces. The right hand side is external to the unit itself, has an O-ring seal. Let's see if I can has an O-ring seal on that. This is where the right hand drive shaft, or in the case of Australia, the driver's side drive shaft comes out. The main housing has a breather, one-way breather hose here, so you don't get any pressure build-up or vacuum build-up in there. The oil bath stays inside this unit here. It only takes around about, I think, 600 ml of oil. It does technically share the oil with the gearbox, but when you bolt the whole assembly together with the gearbox, you need to separately fill the gearbox and the transfer case. If you don't put any oil in the transfer case, my understanding is the gearbox won't pump oil into it and keep it filled up, but basically the two of them are not effectively totally separate systems. On the other side of the unit here we have the face which bolts up to the gearbox itself. My understanding is that this O-ring here is the sealed passage by which oil would be shared between the gearbox and the transfer case, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But really that's not the point of this video. The main point of this video is to talk about the actual assembly here, I'll have to zoom into that, of the differential itself and also the transfer case torque vectoring system. So if you own an Evo 7 or onwards that has Active Center Differential, this is not relevant to you. I don't think the transfer case even looks like this. Certainly if you have an Evo 4, 5 or 6 with a front LSD, I also believe this looks a little bit different. But what we have here is the differential housing assembly. In the case of a Legnum VR4 or Diamante VR4 stock, these are an open diff. So as you can see, that is just a basic open differential. There is no management of the torque vectoring left to right on the front wheels, which is actually, I have found, a major downside of these cars. My car is now 280 kilowatts at the wheels on a chassis dyno with the 85. And it completely obliterates the front tyres, and it just won't hook up very well because one of the front wheels spins. With one of the front wheels spinning, it also stops the ability of the transfer case to really do its job properly, because what you'd really like is to have both the left and right wheels and both the front wheels hooked up the same in order for the front to back viscous differential to actually do its job. By the way, anyone familiar with a Evo LSD will note that the bolt here, let me just get this in camera, the bolt here, which is used to hold the diff to the viscous coupling is very different to the LSD style. So if you have an LSD, what you'll notice is that the common problem is that the bolts that hold the two together are these countersunk style bolts which actually shear off, and you need to put bigger ones in. So as you can see with the open diff, very different setup, doesn't suffer from that problem. So let's get to the meat of what I really wanted to talk about here, and that's this bad boy here. This right in front of you here is the viscous coupling unit used on the Evo 4, 5 and 6 and on the Legnum and Galant VR4. It is a sealed unit. You do not take this apart. In fact, if you have a look here, if you look at that, let me just get it focus on that bolt. These are these very odd fasteners which I actually not sure how they work, but you cannot disassemble this. It is a sealed unit. It does not share oil with the rest of the diff. The liquid inside there is a special silicone-based liquid which is used for hydraulic locking up of the power front to rear. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. I will provide some links to images of what's inside this because I don't have time right now to cut this apart with my angle grinder. It's very, very strong metal. Looks like it's been case hardened. It would be quite a bit of work to get it apart. But essentially what's inside is, I believe, around about 30 or 40 stacked plates. And those stacked plates inside there are very, very thin. And in between those plates is this silicone-based hydraulic fluid. Now, when the plates themselves are moving in unison at the same speed, so one stack of plates is for the power to the front of the car. The other stack of plates is the output power to the rear of the car. Now, when those plates are moving in unison, that is, the front and rear wheels are turning at a same rate, then that liquid inside there it maintains a liquid state. When the front and rear wheels start turning at a greatly different rate, what happens is the plates move at a different rate, and the cutouts in the plates cause a shearing force in the liquid, and as that liquid has a shearing force applied to it, it stops acting like a liquid and begins to act more like a solid. So it effectively locks the plates together to a certain point. It's not a full mechanical lock. It would work and very similarly to the way a torque converter would work in an automatic transmission, whereas at a certain speed the actual hydraulic fluid tends to lock up. And with a torque converter, the way that's controlled is with the design of the converter itself, the shape of the blades and the vanes in the torque converter. In this particular case, it's controlled by the shape of the cutouts in those plates. So it's a very simple unit. You don't disassemble it. It never leaks oil. The oil never needs changing. It's a lifetime part. So if you find that for some reason the transfer case in your car has something wrong with this component right here in terms of the torque vectoring back and forth, you could just drop one of these in from another transfer case. Even if that other transfer case, like in mine, had run out of oil and the pinion gears were all worn, had heel wear and everything on them. So I'm going to keep this part. Who knows when I'll need it? I haven't heard of transfer cases failing in that manner. They tend to break other components. But there you go. This component here, very, very common, shared. I believe it's the same part between the Evos and the Legnum and Galant VR4s, and also in the Magnas. In fact, the transfer case in my car right now is a transfer case from a Mitsubishi Magna, because it is literally the exact same part as used on the Legnum and Galant VR4. Not a lot of huge amount of info, but I hope for those of you who had no idea what was inside your transfer case that this is actually helpful. By the way, I will finish up by saying if you are a Galant or Legnum VR4 owner, you can replace this with an LSD unit for an Evo, M Factory, plated LSD, or there's another brand that starts with A, I can't remember, ATC possibly, I probably got that wrong. These are the best brands of LSD to use, according to Steve from Transformance Mechanical Engineering in Sydney. The helical style diffs are apparently not recommended, and there is actually a couple of Evo specific diffs that if you drop them in, they don't seal appropriately. They're a little bit smaller than the diff size for the Legnum and Galant VR4, and you can actually get you can actually destroy the diff and the transfer case. So you've got to be careful what type of LSD you actually do install.